Ms. Stansbury, I recognize you for 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, just on that last point, we should clarify that, yes, in fact, there are electric freight vehicles on the road, and it is anticipated over the next 10 to 20 years, our entire vehicle fleet will be electrical, and that is one of the necessary steps that we have to take in order to address the climate crisis. And so I want to just use this second round to talk some more about the climate crisis specifically and the things that we are doing through the Inflation Reduction Act, and talk to you, Mr. Drummer, about some of the work that you've done around climate justice and building more equity into the kind of clean energy economy that we're building. So I want to just reiterate that this August, Democrats here in the House of Representatives and in the United States Senate passed the largest single piece of legislation, not just in the history of the United States, but in the history of the world, to address our climate crisis. And I think some of the factual challenges that folks are having in this hearing today is that to address the climate crisis, we have to address it across all sectors. That's correct, Mr. Drummer, right? And so we have to do it across the electricity sector, we have to do it across vehicle sectors, we have to do it in terms of our emissions, our building materials, things like that. And the Inflation Reduction Act is the most comprehensive piece of legislation to ever be created to help invest in all of those sectors so that we can actually avert passing a tipping point in our global carbon emissions, and we can make this transition that will be necessary so that our communities do not suffer more. And I mentioned in my comments a few moments ago, I'm from New Mexico. This summer, we just had the largest wildfires ever in the history of our state. Our state is experiencing a millennial drought right now. So climate change is already here. We're already experiencing it. I'm a water resources manager. I've worked on these issues for many, many years, and we already see this signature of climate change. And what we know is that if we don't implement the IRA and the 40% emissions reductions that are in it, we will see even more catastrophic impacts for our communities, which is why we're seeing such industry resistance and, of course, these strange attacks here. So, Mr. Drummer, I wonder if you could talk to us about what exactly is meant by the idea of a just transition, and how do we build equity into this movement?
Right, the idea of a just transition is about, one, the places who are most affected and first impacted, not only by the fossil fuel infrastructure, the emissions, the extraction. It's a product that poisons people and our environment across its entire product life cycle. So the folks who are most affected by that should be prioritized in how we transition, which is why the Inflation Reduction Act gives additional tax credits to private investors, right, who are citing renewable energy and battery storage projects in those types of communities. A just transition also acknowledges that there are many, many people who work in the fossil fuel sector. I was talking to one the other day who put his family, all his children through college, welding pipes on fossil. That might not be the technical term, but that's what he did. And the idea is that they should have a way into the clean energy economy. And by the way, there's a lot of work to be done to wind down this infrastructure, to seal this infrastructure, and to maintain this infrastructure safely so it doesn't leak and start poisoning our environment when it's no longer in use. And so that's the idea of a just transition, that we can bring everybody along and everybody can be part of this clean energy economy.
Thank you, Mr. Drummer, and I personally really appreciate that. And some of the folks who are here on the committee today know, because I serve on the Natural Resources Committee and have talked about my family story, but my parents were both energy workers. My mother was a crane mechanic who helped build a coal-fired power plant in northwestern New Mexico, and my father was a boilermaker and a welder in the oil fields working for one of the major global oil companies. And so just transition isn't just for communities who are living in natural, wild, beautiful places. It's for the communities that are really at the heart of this transition, to make sure that they have dignity, that they have jobs, that they are able to build communities and economies that really reflect their values, their cultures, their languages, and their needs. And so I'm really grateful that you're on the front lines of this effort as a thought partner to us, and just appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation about it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Boebert for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr.